Hi, everyone. Welcome back. So I'm pretty certain that that breakout was not what you expected it to be, and really excited to hear about how this went for everybody. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be bringing the facilitators from groupings of the rooms up for some interactive discussions. So we'll do 3 sessions with some of the moderators, and then we'll kind of round robin those out. After we're done with those discussions, we're going to move into an interactive break and then a break to yourselves. So let's get going. So if we can bring in the first 4 of the moderators. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for the amazing speech earlier. It was very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. No, thanks for all being a part of today. I'm super excited to hear about what happened in each of these separate rooms. So I think that there's still some people moving around, so we might as well get started and just hear from each of you about what was covered while we were away. So why don't we start with you, Courtney?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Brianne. So we had a great group. The superhero names were super fun. So one of the things that we talked on, and partly because we had some students in our group, was adopting students as part of that trust network. And what we talked about is that if we're operating out of trust, that the voices of students and the voices of our youth would be adopted sooner, that we would take into idea, or we would take their ideas into consideration faster. And that spilled off into a conversation about, having a quality of life for our children. Like, does that trickle down effect then come into our, into our children and create a sense of playfulness and enthusiasm in our children? And that came into then revitalizing the downtown core, and really kind of is into this like spillover mindset that we would get, that this risk taking and playfulness and entrepreneurship mental model would become more of a community mindset across the whole city. And so then there would be this knowledge spillover where there's, between different disciplines and applying different techniques and different systems thinking across industries. We also quickly talked about the tech upskilling programs and those students, the older students, right? Because a lot of them are doing a career transition. And we just talked about how those students are learning from each other and their past experiences. But with these new tech upskilling programs, that, in an environment of trust, that there should be more openness and collaboration between those groups. Not only to, be approaching different industry and different sectors to get these students employed, but just in what's working in their programs. And I think one of the big takeaways at the end, or not quite at the end, but in the middle, was, how do we create this new work-life balance, right? So Alex in our group mentioned, our productivity has gone up, but our hours haven't gone down and our pay hasn't increased. So how do we rethink that model? Like, what are we measuring? Are we measuring hours worked? Are we measuring productivity? And then that spilled off into, what is important to measure in a community? Are we simply measuring, and do we simply want to be the best at, dollars and jobs, or is there something more? Are we really measuring relationships? Are we measuring how we're connected to each other, and what do we want to be known for being best at? And that came back into, again, that quality of life. So that was our group.
That's an amazing number of things to cover in that short period of time. You solved the next 10 years. That's awesome. Yeah. I love the conversation you engaged in around adopting students and bringing the voices of the youth into the conversation. I think thinking about the value of diversity, that diversity, just even in terms of age representation, is so key. Different perspectives, like even within within my companies, as an example, it's something we really think about, is about making sure we have representation across a spectrum there, because you can really learn a lot from people who have grown up as digital natives, as an example. So cool. Well, that's amazing.
Well, I'll pop off the stage so someone else can come on in.
Amazing. Okay, Sarah, let's hear from you and your team.
Sure. I mean, we had a really interesting and winding conversation in our group as well. So it started off, we were talking we were hitting on a lot of the points of the Rainforest social contract. So, having a high level of trust, more collaboration, giving before taking. And then we started talking about, well, what does this utopia look like? And someone mentioned, it seems like we've actually gone a little bit backwards in the last few years, where this used to feel like a strong sense of community, of a place that there were these connections, there was more than just and so this narrowing to being more about just about networking or funding. And so there was this strong desire in my group to go to widen that out again and go back from something that's just about who do you know, who can you introduce me to actually building a community and coming and encouraging people to come into Rainforest with this, instead of having the mindset of what do I need, what can I get, how can I benefit from this community, but actually coming in and saying, what can I bring, what can I add, and stopping, a lot of people that we heard, especially younger or less experienced people coming in, they think, oh, well, I don't have any contacts, I don't have any money, I can't contribute. But you can contribute in so many other ways. So this idea of, if you ask, you shall receive, but flipping it around as well and thinking, how can I add? What can I give back? Then we jumped over to this idea that, there's building so many tech companies that it's actually regenerative. It actually just becomes not self-sustaining, but in the same way as a rainforest, as something dies or as something falls down, it's creating new possibilities, it's creating new opportunities for new growth. There was also a lot of talk about this sort of massive positive impact for people and planet. So this idea of the social impact sustainability side. We also, interestingly, after saying that we wanted to grow tech companies, we also switched gears a little bit and said, maybe let's focus on tech. And it's not that we shouldn't focus on tech. Tech is important, but saying tech companies, it is in some cases exclusive language, because there's a lot of companies that don't see themselves as a tech company. But arguably, it's 2021. All companies use tech to a greater or lesser extent. And so maybe we should be talking about innovation or innovative companies rather than tech companies. This also led us into a conversation about having a front door, some kind of visible front door, this idea of people knowing, okay, they want to get involved. Where do you go first? How do you get your foot literally in the door? And there was a funny story shared about, someone setting up meetings to join the ecosystem and literally getting bounced by the front door being physically locked in the building. So it was like very literally stopped by the front door. And then that led into a conversation about needing this focal point. So, we talked about, if you want to get more butterflies, to mix multiple metaphors here, and I apologize in advance. If you want to get more butterflies or more moths, you need a flame. And so we need to fan this flame, this energy, that fuels and inspires people. So that's not necessarily a place or a person, but just this energy that's really at the core of inspiration and innovation in what everyone does. So we talked about, maybe that could be, this focal point could be platform's new innovation center. Maybe it's going to be Rainforest. But we really wanted to see this flame, this center, this energy, this feeling of community come back.
That's awesome. I think yeah, that the Platform Innovation Center is so right in line with that whole thinking. Like a lot of times there are people who really do want to start something. They don't know how to start. They don't know where to start. And literally having that physical place where you have a point, and it's like making those first steps, getting in the door, and then the momentum really carries itself once you commit to doing something. But feeling like you have a place is really orienting when you're creating something that hasn't been done before.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And I think to your point about having a place, also that diversity piece, right? Feeling like there is a place for you, whether or not you're a tech company or some other kind of company, whether or not you fit the profile of a, 20 something brilliant entrepreneur or not. You might not. We want everyone to feel like they've got that place and that it's for everyone.
Absolutely. Awesome conversation. Wow. Again, I can't even believe that you all covered this much in that short period of time.
It was a whirlwind.
That's amazing. Great. Well, thank you so much for your contribution.
Thanks.
Awesome. Bridget, you're back.
I'm back. I will just share really quickly and let some of the other facilitators get some airtime here. A lot of what's already been said, we kind of had some overlap in discussion. We talked about Calgary being the first choice for immigrants coming to Canada, for new Canadians choosing our city, our province as a place to land and to contribute to the sector. That led us to a big conversation around diversity and how we get there. And we had some grassroots movements in the room who are doing that work in Calgary right now, which was really exciting to see that those incremental kind of steps are happening every week in the city. We talked about the evolution of the educational system. We talked about entrepreneurship being ingrained in everyone's way of doing, whether or not the intention is to become an entrepreneur, because God knows everybody doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. But if that way of thinking, that mentality is something that we teach from a very young age, that would be kind of the best case scenario. And I think other than that, we talked a lot about to that front door, like Sarah talked about, where if we have this holistic ecosystem, and again, the Innovation Center plays into this, and so do a lot of players in the ecosystem around being very easy for entrepreneurs to guide their way through the system versus hitting that locked door, as Sarah put it. I think I might just leave it there and let some of the other facilitators jump on.
Yeah, why don't you stay on for a second, and we'll
Sure.
welcome Brett and Christine to hear from them. And were there any threads in what Bridget and her group had covered that were similar? Anything there that surprised you? Why don't we hear from Brett first?
Oh yeah, there's definitely some parallels going on with the conversation we were having. And I thought that maybe I would just start by quickly ripping off some of the superhero names, unless that's not kosher, just because I think they really illuminate sort of the conversation we were having. We had the Path Clear, who was trying to build a more equitable and fair organization, in contrast to what he saw in the corporate world that he's been in for a long time. We had the Light Man, bringing a brightness and an excitement and an energy to the startup world and everything we're trying to do. We had the Hulkinator, Bob from Thin Air, the Protector, nice, friendly guy, but if you try to mess with his people, he's going to turn into a very large, angry man, and that Protector kind of mentality. And then Chris Alora Valoris, which honestly, we came at the very tail end, and I didn't get the full description, but we were talking a lot about, and what was inspiring about her was this commitment to trying to find value, and not necessarily doing diversity out of some sort of feeling of guilt or anything like that, but really understanding the value creation that a diverse sort of brain trust can bring to an organization. So love that one. And then I couldn't help myself. Obviously, my superhero name is Good Lawyer. Whizzing by, solving legal problems for startups and entrepreneurs.
Amazing. Amazing. Great. Christine, let's hear from you.
Yeah, we kind of really interestingly had two long discussion because I did not read the schedule. I apologize to my group for that. But we talked about a lot of different things, and it's really kind of neat. I just reviewed the notes, and just complete synchrosis across this entire topic. Like 10 or 12 different topics, comes down to, I think, 3 sort of pillars. And those pillars are sharing and celebrating milestones, role models, and diversity. And the sharing and celebrating milestones is that we as an ecosystem, we would like to see more celebration of the smaller stuff. I will say, because I want this to happen now, so I'm on Terry's team, is that we need a sponsor to put LEDs all over the outside of platform. And then the new innovation center can light up different colors when startups in our ecosystem achieve different things, like their first employee and their first customer. Like, those are huge things. And we see companies like Virtual Gurus that we've been able to watch that journey with, or, having worked at the accelerator, I watch those startups and I watch those journeys, and most of the people in the ecosystem don't get that chance. And I don't get that chance for startups that are outside of my personal ecosystem. In role models, we're really looking at, like, we need mentors to reflect the mentees we want, and we need our ecosystem to reflect the diversity. So it's sort of tied in, but really, like, how do we say to students, you can get a job in tech when, the typical kind of CEO is an engineer that's a male? How do we say to all these people? And so there's some really interesting points from that. And really just, like, I like that profile that was brought up. Like, do you see yourself in the profile? Let's expand the idea of a profile. And it's doable because we sort of looked at an interesting scenario where someone that's studying sociology at the U of C fully sees themselves getting a job in oil and gas. Like, that's just as disconnected as, maybe seeing yourself as getting a job in tech. So if we become that tech hub, the way that students think about us as an oil and gas hub, let's create that kind of broad line. And then the last piece was diversity, and this really interesting notion of replicating privilege came up from Terry. And it's about, like, how do we create programs that replicate the privilege for minority groups and for groups that aren't born with a silver spoon, or not born with XYZ sort of type situations, connect them with the things that replicate that privilege so that we can break that down. And really just not having a few representatives of certain groups. I made the joke that at one of the, culminating Rainforest events, my girlfriend and I were there, and they showed the graph, and it was like under 30 LGBTQ plus, and we're like, whoop, whoop, it's just us. And it's kind of like, how do we not have that sort of silo? Great that we have a few, but let's create more. Let's create more diversity and more representatives from all of these different groups in the ecosystem we want. And it just all tied together. It was kind of really a little bit spooky, but that was sort of the pillars.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's I think the diversity side of things is just so key. Getting as many voices at the table, as many minds on many problems as possible. And I know that, I kind of, you kind of get sort of bubbled off in your own world, and the teams that I've worked together with and built are pretty diverse, and there have been events where I've gone to, downtown in sort of oil and gas world, and you realize that that's not always the case. And you realize that when you're in a group of people where everybody else is sort of looking and acting the same, how other you can really feel, and how much more of a community you can build by creating sort of just very diverse representation across the stage, and make sure that everybody knows that everybody's voice is welcome and encouraged. So very cool. Well, yeah. It sounds like
it was also interesting. And Jade, he does the Telling It Like It Is podcast, sort of said a similar thing where the diversity of the people that he's interviewed in the last little bit. And I said, Jade, kudos, you are drawing it out. You are looking for different. You are looking for, new voices. And I personally know that about Jade as a friend of mine, that he looks for that. We need that across the entire ecosystem, right? We need that everywhere. We need every podcast to look for that. We need every sort of, like LinkedIn post to consider that, to kind of share that. And it all comes down, right? Like I said, it loops back. How do we demonstrate those role models? How do we create that profile? How do we change it? Well, we start sharing more milestones from, women founders. We start sharing more milestones from young founders. We start doing all this stuff for different groups of people, and sharing those milestones and demonstrating, like, yeah, it doesn't matter what you look like, what age you are, what degree you have. This is a founder that matches you. You can see yourself in this ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
And I
Absolutely.
will bid adieu to leave other extroverts to talk, because I could stay here all day.
Yeah, no, I mean, just the idea of like when you're building a team, when you're bringing people around you, are you trying to build an echo chamber, or are you trying to get new opinions and perspectives and bringing people on that you're going to learn something from? So, yeah, awesome points, Christine. Thanks for your contribution. Zach, let's hear from you.
And I'll make this because I know we're running over, but when we talked about trust, we talked about the absence of fear. And with the absence of fear, the ability to be open, create new things, have the willingness to explore and take risk and share with others. So an environment where there's very low fear because there's such high trust is the feeling that we would take when we're talking about trust. And then when we talked about collaboration, we talked about, a good example that was brought up, it was around the brewery district, how the companies have their own products and they, have their own profit lines, but they collaborate with each other and drive traffic to one another. And that type of environment and the technology environment of sharing with one another, particularly stories and experiences, and access to other people, creating this groundswell of a leadership. And then lastly, around diversity, we talked about diversity fuels creativity. And as an innovation sector, we need to think about new solutions to problems. And with that, if we have in-group cohesion or a group that thinks together, we actually think of new things as threats instead of opportunities. And embracing that diversity of perspective allows us to reach those new outcomes. So that was the summary of the notes that I wrote.
Awesome. Yeah, the concept of storytelling, I think, is, it's like that narrative building is so core to what makes us human and what makes us connect with each other. And the more that we can tell those stories, the more we can engage with and identify with this ecosystem that we're creating. And to Christine's point, like the idea of kind of creating that visual of what are we achieving together as this rainforest ecosystem is so key to be able to get that back out into the real world, to say that these are the impacts that we're having day to day, and these are things that should be celebrated. So that's fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your contribution and your team's input. I think we probably could have spent this entire section just going over one of the breakout rooms content. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to hear from everybody because we've got lots of program to get going with here. So thank you everyone for your involvement in that. I think that it really shows how everyone sort of disconnected from the world around them. They really were here for the breakouts, and I want to see more of that. It's amazing how much we can get out if we put this in. So the next person that I'm super excited to introduce you to today is Amber Rowden. Amber is the community storyteller at Rainforest. She is also an actor and performer. So we're super excited to have you here to guide us through an interactive break. And as I mentioned earlier, once we go through this interactive break, there's going to be a 5-minute break for you all on your own to take a few minutes and then join us again for the next section.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Brianne. All right. So, hi, everyone. I'm Amber. And Rainforest Alberta is all about working those trust muscles. And I think we've seen that all day today. And what better way to work those trust muscles than to shake it out and work it out. And so I am excited to take you on an interactive break. I hope you will all be silly and vulnerable and just trust in the process. So we are going to start out. If you are sitting down, please stand up and make sure there's a little room around you, and just stretch and just yawn. Shake it out a little bit. Now we've done a lot of talking, so we're gonna massage our face. Massage our face a little bit.
I like Christine's partner.
Rub our face out a little bit. You can make noise if you want. Blow our lips out a little bit.
The muted lip blow.
Okay, now we're gonna do a roll down, and this is good just to get you breathing, just to get you in your body. So stand feet shoulder width apart, and as you do this, you're gonna breathe in till you get to the bottom. And what you want to do is starting with your head, you want to roll down every section of your vertebrae. So you're gonna start with your head, and you're gonna let your shoulders go. You're gonna let your hips go. You're gonna let your legs go. And you're just going to stand at the bottom, and you're going to take a deep breath in.
Can you hear my yoga breathing?
And as you're down here, you can even shake, you can swing back to forth. Hopefully you can hear me while I'm down here.
We can hear you.
Perfect. You can grab your shoulders and swing. Now, as you come up, you want to release every vertebrae again. So start with your knees. Make sure your head's the last thing that comes up. Otherwise, you'll get lightheaded. Come up. Okay, now we're going to do a bouncing roll down. So it's the exact same thing, but bend your knees and just start bouncing. Bounce in place. And now we're going to start with our head. Let your head go. Let your shoulders go.
Good job, Jonathan.
Don't skip the bounce. Make sure you're bouncing. Get out that energy.
We're bouncing.
Perfect. Keep bouncing. Go all the way to the bottom. Just bounce. Bounce in place.
If we get any more crazy, I'm going to need a chiropractor.
Do what you can. And then come up each vertebrae at a time. Bounce. Flail. Okay. So run in place if you want. We're going to do a quick tongue twister. And these are fun. I don't know if anyone can hear you or not, but if you can hear yourself, it's so fun to just do. So we're going to start with Irish wristwatch.
Irish wristwatch.
We're going to say that 3 times fast. Ready, Bridget? Ready, Jonathan? Ready? Irish wristwatch.
Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch.
5 times fast. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch.
Irish wristwatch.
Perfect. Okay, I have one more exercise, and so we're gonna shake our right hand 8 times. Shake our
Irish
left
wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch.
Jonathan's on the delay, I think.
so.
Last
Okay,
one.
we're gonna shake our right hand 8 times, our left hand 8 times, our right leg 8 times, our left leg 8 times. Then we're gonna do the same thing, except for 4 shakes, 4 shakes, 4 shakes, 4 shakes, 2 shakes, 2 shakes, 2 shakes, 2 shakes, and then on the very end, you're just gonna shake and yell rainforest. Okay, so ready?
All right.
Start with 8 shakes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Rainforest!
Rainforest! We lost Jonathan. He's like,
He's
not
out.
doing this.
Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had a lot of fun. Now I'll give you time to go take a bio break, get some water, get some coffee, and I'll see you back here in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Amber. See everybody back in 5, maybe a little less than 5. There'll be a image on your screen.
Thank you.
Hello. Welcome back. I think Bridget's just going to be joining me here in a second. Hopefully you've all gotten a chance to grab a snack. That was a pretty amazing session. So I would really like to say a big thank you to Amber for getting us all moving. That was pretty amazing. I think somebody added in the chat, have you been a teacher? It's amazing how adults really respond to the same things that kids do. Okay, Bridget, let's do this. So we're going to check. I think you're muted now.
If I had a
There you
nickel. Okay. Yeah, I think we're ready to do a check-in on our graphic recording. So we should see that coming on screen here.
Oh, wow.
So forgive me while I squint at my screen, which is a little further away from me. It's looking like a lot of...
I love this. This is amazing. So what would Calgary's ecosystem look like if every action and idea stemmed from a place of trust, collaboration, and diverse thinking? So this is, I think, a third of what Sam was able to produce in that amount of time. So let's see what stands out to you.
Yeah, we have a lot of mention of community, obviously of trust, knowledge spillover, which I love, and mention of education, which I think is really key in the top of funnel events in the next 10 years.
Tech is foundational everywhere. It's so true. Like, it feels just so redundant to say a tech company now.
No kidding.
Every company is tech enabled. So I love the idea of innovation companies. Focus on innovation companies.
I love the regenerative ecosystem. Very cool. Okay, well, that's awesome. Thank you, Sam. We really look forward to seeing the big grandiose vision at the end, which will be sent out to everybody. So, Brianne, I'll maybe let you. Are you happy to introduce the next section?
Yeah, for sure. So while you were all creating your own superhero names, we were pulling in all of that data, and our wonderful Amber was able to produce a word cloud for us. So maybe if we could get that word cloud shared, we'll just go through what's been created. Oh, amazing. Okay, so let's just look at some of the words that are popping out based on those conversations. It's funny, there's some very large words here, but all I see is Hulkinator now and a terrific bookworm. So entrepreneur, connector, super, positioning, story, creativity. This is amazing. So I think, this just goes to show that a lot of the threads of the discussions that we're having are really connected, and the foundation that we see this next 10 years built on is common. Good lawyer made it. There's good lawyer in there. Rowdy. I really just wish I had faces to attach to all of these names here. Phenom, Swiss Tech, Furious, Radio Knife or Radio and Knife. We can't be sure. Either way, I feel like there's a story there that probably needs to be shared. So this is awesome. This word cloud, I think, is just a great takeaway from that session for today. So this is basically, so the idea of this is really to get our creative juices flowing for the next interactive session. So again, make sure everything else is shut down, turn your phones off, close your other browsers. We're going to move on to the next session. As you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, the networking session is where we're going to be moving next. So you can see the little now icon appearing over the networking icon. What we're going to be doing here is moving into 7 4-minute speed dating sessions where the platform is going to automatically be matching 2 by 2 or 1 by 1s up here. So the reason for this session is that we know what's foundational to this entire concept and to the entire ecosystem is collisions, human interactions. And so knowing where there is work to do as far as living the social contract values, what your superhero vibe is, what the optimal culture of trust is going to look like in today and the next 10 years for companies. So it all starts with those little interactions. So let's collide. So please go ahead and move into the networking sessions. And once those sessions are done, we'll see you back in the main plenary room.